The biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. Hey, remember where you had your best abortion? That was the time. How ghoulish is Planned Parenthood? Remember, this is the organization that is supported by $500 million of all of our money that Paul Ryan personally said was a punch list item for him to eliminate that funding. And yet it persists. And there doesn't seem the political will to stand up to Planned Parenthood, even after the illegal trafficking in baby body parts expose by David DeLayden.
Isn't it? It's tied into Obamacare, though, right? The funding for Planned Parenthood?
How's that?
No, I'm just how could we defund Planned Parenthood?
By not allocating $500 million to Planned Parenthood.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I mean, the power of the purse resides in the House, so defund it.
Right, but
That's
I just thought part of Obamacare was part of the defunding Planned Parenthood, and that bill never passed because of John McCain.
You can do it as a standalone.
You can
do it budgetarily. That's just in. There's no constitutional right for Planned Parenthood to receive $500 million of other people's money.
And what about PBS?
Same deal there.
Same deal. Such a joke.
But the best abortion question, I'm sorry if that's upsetting and rather stark, but I'm just recounting what actually occurred in Seattle. Martha Plimpton, who, if you saw her, you'd remember from Goonies, if you saw that movie, cheered on by an audience after boasting that she had her best abortion, quote unquote, in Seattle.
Oh, congratulations.
She was being interviewed by an author at a hashtag Shout Your Abortion event in Seattle, because even if you're pro-choice, love to hear from people, abortion is something to celebrate. That's a celebratory occurrence, is it? That's Planned Parenthood's position.
She said she had her first abortion at age 19. Seattle.
Hashtag Shout Your Abortion. Ms. Plimpton said, Seattle has some particular significance for me for lots of reasons. I've got a lot of family here, some of who are in the audience tonight. I also had my first abortion here at the Seattle Planned Parenthood. The 46-year-old followed up her story with a loud, yay, as the audience cheered on. Because, again, it's a celebration. She added, Ms. Plimpton, notice I said first, and I don't want Seattle, I don't want you guys to feel insecure. It was my best one. Heads and tails above the rest, she continued. If I could Yelp review it, I totally would. And if that doctor's here tonight, I don't remember you at all. I was 19, but I thank you nonetheless.
Ooh.
By the way, so we were talking about the Ronners in the first half of the hour. They're Killing Fields Circle participants in Planned Parenthood, donors to Planned Parenthood. Is this where you want to be? Celebrating this? I thought the feminist movement and the pro-choice movement was safe, legal, and rare. I guess rare is out the window. Interesting. And of course,
does anybody have boundaries anymore? That's my problem with some ladies on the left. They forgot about boundaries. And sometimes they celebrate the wrong things in order to what? Get attention or to, this is going to draw more funding for Planned Parenthood?
Planned Parenthood's their church.
It's just amazing because even the thought of defunding Planned Parenthood, they make money while we're sleeping, Dan. I mean, there's 4 fundraisers that I've known of in Chicago where they've raised tens of thousands of dollars and all the money goes to Planned Parenthood.
That's a drop in the bucket. I mean, they bank their money.
Oh, that's just in like a suburb or in part of the city. They make all their money all over the country
by performing abortions.
Right. They charge women for abortions, but I'm saying there's so many fundraisers for Planned Parenthood.
Yeah,
it makes me wonder why they're doing that.
The majority of their money comes from abortions. That's what Planned Parenthood does. All of the women's health propaganda notwithstanding. And it's been exposed over and over again. That's what they do. It's not arguable.
And we had a woman that used to work for Planned Parenthood from Houston. Remember, she called in and
yes, she's a convert. Yeah. Yes, to the other side, as has happened in a number of instances, including, of course, with Norma McCorvey, Roe of Roe v. Wade,
And now
who became a pro-life activist.
at the Austin Planned Parenthood, because I was calling all the different Planned Parenthoods, you can get an abortion to go. I don't know if you've heard about this one, the home abortion. It's completely barbaric because she said, well, if you do it, then you're going to need to stay home from school or from work because the first part of the fetus coming out is at our office, and then the next 2 days it's going to happen. You're going to have to be close to a bathroom. She told me this on the phone. Like, what is this? She's like, it's a new form of abortion that they're giving or selling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For the Hollywood actress on the go.
I mean, it's abortion to go. I mean, it was.
But that doesn't have an impact. The disposable nature of life, at least how we treat it, that doesn't have an impact on culture. That doesn't have an impact beyond the single abortion, beyond that single woman's experience and the extended family and friend network's experience. That doesn't have any ripple effect in society, does it? Doesn't promote a culture of death. It doesn't promote a callousness towards your fellow man, does it?
Well, it's insulting to the women who had gotten abortions that were kind of regretting it now, and I don't know. I just think that it's
not
sick.
This is not an attack on women who've had an abortion. This is not an attack on people who are pro-choice. This is an attack on predators. And Planned Parenthood is a predator. There's just no other way to describe it. Cecile the Lion, Lyin apostrophe, Richards, their president, is a ghoul. That's who this is focused on. So you can have a difference of opinion, I understand, as the heroines of the pro-life movement long ago educated me, abortion hurts women. So this is not to vilify, castigate, stigmatize. This is to say Planned Parenthood and their accomplices, like this Martha Plimpton, this unfortunate, B-movie actress.
Well, hopefully she'll never get work in Hollywood again.
What are you talking about?
They'll probably celebrate her.
Yeah. The idea of celebrating and promoting and profiting. I mean, this is literally blood money. And the responses to the undercover videos from David DeLeiden. They were edited. They were this, they were that. I know, I understand. There's suspension of disbelief is required because you don't want to feel like you're condoning this. You can't endorse this. I get it. And so my ideology runs right into the reality that I don't want to confront. And it's difficult. It's difficult to square the two. I totally get it. But that's what they do. And that's what it is. And be honest with yourselves. A related story.
Mm-hmm. What could be related to that?
Well, I mean, since Planned Parenthood is one of the churches of the left, what about actual churches? And a prayer of a Christian nature at work or home. That's under assault. Under assault. Two cases that are worth noting. Federal Appeals Court in San Francisco announced within the last week that high school football coach in Washington State that we talked about, Joseph Kennedy, who was fired for praying by himself after each high school football game. The high school could fire him, that they were within their bounds to fire him. So no praying at work. Even this again was not part of any formal program. This was the high school football coach praying by himself after each game. Joseph Kennedy's a Marine Corps veteran. We had him on the show. Dedicated his life to serving student athletes. He served as coach 8 years at Bremerton High School. When he was praying on the football field voluntarily, like you see after NFL games, for example, that generated a reprimand. He stopped praying during post-game speeches. He waited until his players were busy singing the school fight song and engaging other post-game festivities, then prayed alone, silently for less than half a minute. And the school district couldn't abide that, so they fired him. and the appellate court upheld that termination. A related story, a federal court of appeals recently told Mary Ann Sauce, a public housing resident in Kansas, that 2 officers could force her to stop praying in her living room. In her living room.
I know, you can't tell people what to do in their own house.
It's public housing.
Oh.
That's why. Federal government.
Good point.
Yeah.
Still.
Force her to stop praying in her own living room. So you can't pray at work and you can't pray at home, and you've got appellate court judges who don't understand the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. More importantly, though, of course, you have the assault on religious liberty, and religious freedom, along with family, are the bulwarks against state domination. They're the bulwarks against authoritarianism. Just a review and reflection from Lord Acton on religious liberty, because it's important what line we draw that we're going to fight. He notes the modern theory, which has swept away every authority except that of the state and has made the sovereign power irresistible by multiplying those who share it, is the enemy of that common freedom in which religious freedom is included. It condemns, as a state within the state, every intergroup and community, class or corporation, administering its own affairs. And by proclaiming the abolition of privileges, it emancipates the subjects of every such authority in order to transfer them exclusively to its own. All right, so a little translation on that, but it's worth citing it. It's worth going back and reading some of Lord Acton's reviews on this, the man who famously gave us power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Basically, what he is saying is that religious freedom is primarily equated with the individual, and that's what's under attack in these cases. But the reason that but it's a little bit of a misdirection play, I believe. The reason the state only wants to see religious freedom in the individual is that the individual has no real power against the state. And isn't that what we're seeing in the case of the football coach and the case of that public housing resident, Mary Ann Sauce, in Kansas? So some of the reaction may be to these stories, oh, come on, a person like you just reacted should be allowed to pray in their own home. And that's where we draw the line in the sand, exactly where the state wants us to draw the line. Not in defense of the church and the church's role in a civilized society, but just the individual who has no power against the state. Something to consider. If religious liberty is something important to you, I mean, it's only the basis upon which the country was founded. It's part of the reaction to the IRS abuses, targeting people because of their political beliefs, but also religious beliefs, asking for copies of prayers. Do you remember that? With those that were seeking 501c3 designation. Asking, send us copies of your prayers. Organizations have strength. The state can roll over the individual. All these platoons of democracy that Edmund Burke talked about, which include, of course, church, they are bulwarks against state power. Make sure you draw the line in the right place. Bob in LaGrange, you're in Chicago's Morning Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. I've got a couple things to add since I talked to your producer, but the whole pro-choice word, I mean, isn't that kind of a misnomer? You know, the pro-lifers like to call it pro-life. I think you should maybe start something, you know, pro-death or pro-murder of an innocent baby. It's just pro-choice, just doesn't have the ring to it. And while I was on hold, I thought about the last news clip where Rahm Emanuel found $80 million to help plug a $120 million gap for security of the high schools. I go back to my high school days. We didn't have security, so it's really sad that $80 million has to be shelled out for security at schools in Chicago. And then a knucklehead state rep you had on commenting after that, you know, very hypocritical, saying by, you know, taking away DACA, you're going to, the people reporting crime is going to go way down. Well, that's interesting. People committed crimes to get into the border. So I just don't understand it. And then to top off my little rant here, Did you hear Sacramento is now giving thugs $1,000 a year?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually $1,000 a month.
We talked about that yesterday. Thanks for the call, Bob, and that's why Amy's moving to Sacramento.
Yeah.
Phil on the northwest side.
Good morning, guys. I just want to let you know, I fought this 16 years ago, brought me to God. Cried my eyes out at Planned Parenthood downtown and prayed. Got many people leave. It was nice. I found it, at that time, I found out that Planned Parenthood was not just selling parts, but selling fetuses and fetal material to companies for shampoo, conditioners, makeups, all kinds of ridiculous stuff. And the exact amount of money that was allocated for that bridge that went down in Minnesota years back went to Planned Parenthood that year as well.
Thanks for the call, Phil.
It's what